Coming up on Legends.
It has not been easy, but especially for the family in those movements. But the firstborn suffered a lot. He went to so many schools, over 10 of them. It's only when we remained a bit stationary that the thirdborn was able to remain with the mother and an absent father most of the time.
We welcome you again to another episode of The Legends, a program that interviews retired and retiring ministers so that we get to understand their experiences and the journey of preparation. With us today is the Reverend Festus Gitonga, the Parish Minister, PCA, Nairobi West, and the former Secretary General of the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, a minister who has a lot of experience, and I believe there is a lot that he can share with us today. So welcome to the program, Reverend Gitonga.
Thank you.
Now, could you share with us your journey into the ordained ministry?
When I finished the college, I got employed by a private company. The current is 4GS or G4S. It was Currico Kenya Limited at that time. And they posted me in Mombasa. And I worked there and then to Kitale. From Kitale, I felt that is not the line I needed to continue with. So I joined teaching. Even the government had posted me as a teacher, but I wanted to have experiences in the urban. And so I joined teaching and taught very briefly, then joined the ministry. From the ministry, I've been moving up and down. It has not been easy, but especially for the family in those movements, but it's coming to an end that way. So I joined, I've served after training in St. Paul's, then went to Mokoroini briefly, Nanyuki, from Mokoroini to Nakuru, again to Mombasa, this time as a minister, from Mombasa to Nanyuki, and the journey has continued until I found myself in the head office as well. Yeah.
So you mentioned something about moving from one parish to the other to all corners of this country and even beyond when you went for studies.
Yeah.
Can you tell us your experience in terms of the education of your children in those movements?
Wow. The firstborn suffered a lot. He went to so many schools, over 10 of them. It seemed to affect. We tried to take them to boarding, but again, it backfired. So the firstborn and the secondborn, we had that problem. It's only when we remained a bit stationary that the thirdborn was able to remain with the mother and an absent father most of the time. But that one consistently remained in one school, the primary school, and later on joined the secondary school. These other two suffered, and I realized it got affected. But those are some of the costs of the ministry, which are tough. Nobody wants to know where your children are going through, but it is your responsibility as a father, it's your responsibility as a parent to see that they get well.
During my interaction with you within the last few weeks or so, you have 2 times mentioned about your readiness to retire next year. So, can you share your experience in terms of, emotional, psychological, and physical preparation towards retirement? So, because a person who talks about, I'm retiring next year, must be one who is ready for it. How did you come to that point?
Well, you may be ready or not ready, but the question is, age is catching up with somebody. But the seminars done by this retirement, pension retirement group in our head office woke me up. 1 year before you are 60 years, the office of the Secretary General used to send the letters to remind you of retiring and advising you to get in touch with the pension scheme for a seminar to prepare you. On our constitution, it only talks that when you are about to retire, you are taken near your retiring presbytery, but it doesn't say much about it. But this committee used to call people together, and they got experts to talk to you. That's when you realize you have not been saving enough. But it is too late again. But then they also give you information on how to operate within the remaining months. Luckily, at 60, you retire and you are given your pension, which is very little again, which you are forced to buy annuity after the taxation. We are also given an option that you can remain to avoid heavy taxation until you are 65. But you take, everybody says, let me take what is available today. Yes. That's what I did. And then from there on, you work within the presbytery. You are sent on annual contract, which is given. And then at the end of the year, you are paid, I think, something like 15% annuity, which becomes part of your saving as well, as apart from your salary. And this continues up to your time you are 65. So next year, 1st of August, there will be 65 years. Now, that training, I wish somebody can know about it early enough to modify the way you continue to save. So when I used to hear about retire, when we, even in our ministers, Fratanos, we used to have somebody to tell us about you retire. But when you are being pressurized by school fees for your children and the other requirements and this, sometimes that seems to be remote until that time when you are told, hey, you are retiring next year, and then this is where. Psychologically, at first you did not like it, but you accept it. And then you start adjusting. This is the way I will be living, because there's no, you don't have the luxury of all amount of money you want, and you are not under anybody's tutorage now that so and so will come and visit you or see you, and you start operating within your means now to survive. So whether people see you or not see you, you know very well it's your life, and you live it. So whether you are prepared or not, time comes. But the good thing is when you are being informed early enough, you take the necessary action where you are able. You start thinking how to adjust with the little you'll be having. And if you can look for a way of earning it, the better. Okay. Yes.
Now, during the premier interview with Reverend Gere, he mentioned you severally. And he said that you were the Secretary General when he was doing his research, and you really assisted him in reaching out to the, or sending out the questionnaires and encouraging him to do that research. What informed you to do that? Had you realized that there is a need in the church for that kind of research to be done?
The issues of retirement came further back in the office. When you realize also that you are given everything because the money was not enough to buy annuity. And that means the salary has been low, and therefore you did not reach the threshold. So and somebody is out here to desire to inform the minister. You will do the best you can, because you also find yourself as if you'll be the victim also. I thank God that if he appreciates the little that we did it as an office, not as an individual per se. To Ongere is one of those people who was an insider, trying to tell us what the world outside there is thinking, and then marrying the two. So when he asked for a letter, you did not find any hindrance to giving it, whether it's myself or the Deputy Secretary General then who would give. But we were saying, let's hear what he has. And he wrote, and he also became part and parcel of the pension committee.
At some point in your ministry, you were elected the Secretary General of the Presbyterian Church of East Africa. Yes. And after your term as the SG, you went back to the parish. Yes. How would you explain to us the transition from the office to a parish?
That is tough. Sometimes I would say that if it were possible not to go back to the parish. Yes. People look at you with the eyes of the office. People who have been telling others what to say and what not to say. But PC is very interesting. You come back to the presbytery, you meet the people who you left there, you join with them. They tell you now sit down, we tell you, and you have to obey.
Yes.
You go to the parish, and you cannot bring your head office experiences unless it is required to the member. After all, the member requires your service. But it is a challenge when you have been used to giving direction. And then you also see things going wrong, and when you try to correct them, you meet some resistance, so it's not good. But it has not been all that hostile. You just stick to the law of your work in the parish and avoid unnecessary confrontations with the people who have different opinions, and especially those who maybe you stepped on when you are working. And in that office, maybe the office of the moderator, you can be friendly, but the office of the Secretary General, the question of friendliness is, this is the way things ought to be done according to the Constitution, and we have no other otherwise. And once a decision has been taken, you are the unfortunate one to implement it. Yeah.
Now, PCA is a little bit disadvantaged in terms of the previous holders of the office of the Secretary General. And maybe after we proceed on a break, we will come and seek to tap from your experience as to the way, and I believe there is a debate that is ongoing about the review of the practice and procedure and such issues, but we will discuss that after the break. Thank you.
After the break.
There is an ongoing debate about retirement age, and some proponents of raising the retirement age argue that judges and professors retire over 70. Why not the ministers? And some continue working even after retirement.
But I say, can we also be given time to enjoy other things rather than formally? After all, nobody has taken me out of the kingdom of God. Nobody has taken you from serving Him. What you have taken me out of is the salary.
Welcome back, Reverend Gitonga. And like I said before the break, the church is disadvantaged in terms of the previous holders of the office of the Secretary General. Do you think that the time is ripe to review the PP, the practice and procedure?
The process of review has been on for some time. I remember when the former AG helped the church come up with the current one, and it worked well and it served us well. But there are emerging issues and dynamics that have come that demands that we respond, still maintaining our own theology and structure, but make it a bit easier to respond to some of the issues that surround us. So to me, review is okay, and we see what is able to be changed and what need to be left. But as we say in our constitution, there are those things about our faith, our doctrine, that should remain. But how we respond to issues, that is dynamic, and therefore a review is necessary. As various attempts have come. The challenge is there are things in the constitution that we are supposed to have implemented, but for one reason or the other, we never implemented them. For example, when we talk about the synods, good as they sound and look, we come to one area where how do we now execute it? It would mean restructuring the way we know the presbytery, and in dealing away with some of the powers that we used to be under the General Administration Committee. And who is given now becomes now the issues that we must address. Now, whose power is going to be taken has always remained a challenge. I looked at it keenly myself and realized we have to dismantle quite a number of things. But nobody is able to tell us when you dismantle what it is. But we are disadvantaged the way we are also, because the church is becoming bigger and bigger, with the various units, presbyteries that are independent, that require certain things to be done within that particular area.
Now, you stand in that unique position of being the first and only minister in the PCA church to have held the position of the principal clerk in the PCA, though briefly, and then you became a Secretary General after that. Do you think the work of a Secretary General in the PCA church is too much? And do you think it is the high time that we implement the office of the principal clerk in the church?
What was being separated sometimes back was the office of the principal clerk, which is what we become during the meetings, the principal clerk and the deputy principal clerk, for policy making. What was being separated was the executive secretary general then,
Yes.
in which you are not a policy maker as well as an implementer. So the thinking of the church then was to separate these two positions. Just that the principal clerk, working with the moderator, are like the people who are in charge of the various duties done by the General Assembly offices in the presbyteries. And when we come to the General Assembly meetings, they are the policy makers. And that is what happens even now. Immediately the General Assembly takes position, the Secretary General becomes the principal clerk, and the Deputy Secretary General becomes the Deputy Principal Clerk. Position they relinquish with the end of the General Assembly. And now they become the implementers of the policy, the resolution that has been passed. That is what was being separated. When it came to the General Assembly and the resolution is passed, they scrapped the position immediately, and so I went that way. But I still feel that somebody held accountable and supervised by others with a limit of implementing this. But that was the position. I still feel that it was necessary for somebody else to maybe be helped. But again, we also should understand the presbyteries were fewer, now they are more.
Yes.
So whether you have the executive secretary general or not, the work is not in the head office, the work is in the regions.
There is an ongoing debate about retirement age, and some proponents of raising the retirement age argue that judges and professors retire over 70. Why not the ministers? And some continue working even after retirement. What is your view on that?
I think, brother, somebody needed to rest. This work is tough. I am feeling it right now.
Yeah.
And well, everybody would want the salary, part of it. But the body also refuses to be pushed to a certain level. But I say, can we also be given time to enjoy other things rather than formally? After all, nobody has taken me out of the kingdom of God. Nobody has taken you from serving Him. What you have taken me out of is the salary. I'll preach whenever the Lord sent me to preach. I'll teach what I have known. I prepare my mind to do, even if I'm not called upon by anybody, I'll look for opportunity where I can share the little I feel God has given me.
So, what do you think should be a good working relationship between the active minister and the retired minister in the same parish or in the same presbytery? How should we engage retired ministers in our parishes?
Well, the retired ones, where I am ending, should know that the parish is not in their hands. And never try to outdo the people who are officially where they are and have been inducted. If they give you work, do with all your strength. If they don't, leave them to work. And you cannot claim it as you are right. If the presbytery wants to engage you to be with them here and there, well and good. But the parish will be assigned by the presbytery to be fellowshipping with. It entirely depends on the minister, and you cannot go and push him. Actually, he's the one answerable, not you. And therefore, you leave him. And you cannot create your own friendship with the people and bypass him. He is the one in charge. If he gives you assignments, you do it. You do them. If he doesn't, you remain contented that at the moment he may be okay without you. But there are other places also you can engage yourself, like when you visit people who are sick. Nobody requires any permission to visit sick people. When you visit some aged people somewhere, or colleagues who are maybe retired like you, nobody should ask me why I'm visiting, and fellowship with them. But it also requires money again. You'll be limited by the number, the cash you have. But I would want to be a free person, not tied. But if I'm given work, I can do. If I'm not given, I don't start crying there, I don't have work. After all, you are retired. Let it be so.
Let's go back to something that arose in the process of our discussion. Do you think that we should control or probably not split the presbyteries anymore?
What is actually the purpose of splitting? Because if you split them for administrative purposes, you cannot also have an amorphous thing. We need to consider if there are no other interest in and the purpose is for what it is intended for a presbytery to be. You cannot limit growth by your own standard. But how do we manage these many units? Is the effectiveness possible? Noting all these presbyteries. For example, if we are to go, for example, and call for a business meeting, business committee meeting, in which each presbytery is supposed to send a representative. Half will send ministers, half will send elders. And they come and become the advisory committee of them. That group is big enough to manage the day-to-day affairs. It will always require a select committee to be able to do things. To me, leadership is there required. Everybody can be seen as a leader, but what they offer is different. And we cannot say we should not subdivide it.
Okay.
We continue subdividing until that time, you know. But how we manage the subdivided units is what is becoming a challenge. Centralized things don't seem to be working well for us now.
Thank you very much. I'm amazed at the amount of information, the wealth of information that you have from your position as the former Secretary General, the executive of the church. And that we should continue tapping from you so that it can be beneficial to us and the future generations. Thank you so much for creating some time and giving us an opportunity to share this amidst your very busy schedule. And now feeling that you are nearing retirement, you want to ease the amount of work that you're doing, you added this to your schedule. Thank you so much, and may the Lord bless you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, brother. Thank you for that. You also came to look for me.
Yes. Viewers, thank you for watching this episode, and I believe you have been blessed by the responses of Reverend Gitonga and his wealth of knowledge. And we see you in the next episode of The Legends. God bless you.
Next week on Legends.
So, and then you eventually were elected as the moderator of the PCA General Assembly.
I didn't want at all being a moderator.
Okay.
Because the moderators whom I had seen conducting the General Assemblies and business committees and GAC, I found like it was tough.
Oh, yeah.